Hi everyone, welcome. How are you all doing today? I am thrilled that you are joining me for a little painting session, and in the studio I'm going to be sharing my newest handcrafted water media collection today with you all called Wild Blooms. And so I'm going to swatch a little, paint a little, answer your questions, and ask you a few questions. So I would love for you to go underneath the video. There's a little section that says polls and ask a question. So you can, if you would like, you can ask a question. Let me see if I can find the right place. So underneath the video, there is a little ask a question tab down here, and I'd love for you to answer the question in there that I have. Let me just see. I'm gonna kind of maneuver around my camera. But if you have a question, you can ask a question in there. But I'd love to hear back from you if you have a few minutes just to chime in and let me know what you would love to learn in these free live sessions. I am going to be doing a season of these, so if you want to share your thoughts, that would be awesome. Also, if you want to, in the polls, answer these two questions. It's been very interesting to see. I had a feeling what is your greatest challenge when creating a collection of artwork? I figured number 2 would be like the top winner there. So I would love for you to fill those out. If you are viewing this on the tablet or on the hold on, my camera is not coming back. If you're viewing this on the tablet or on your phone, it'll look a little bit different. I don't think you can see the comment section on the questions, so that might be, this is only if you're on the desktop, you'll be able to see those. So let's see who's here. We have a worldwide audience. I love seeing where everybody's from. Hey, Cynthia, she said San Diego. Anna, Washington, Sherry, Cheryl. Let me see. I just want to check also one thing on my other monitor. I'm streaming this live on YouTube Live too. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm actually not I'm not monitoring the chat there. So if you want to come join us, you can join us in my crowdcast. But let's see. Julie, Cheryl, Elizabeth, Lorraine. Hey, Pamela, aloha. She's in Maui. Kathleen, awesome to have you all here. Canada, Portland, Illinois. We have people from everywhere. So are you all working on anything fun in the studio today? I would love to know. If you want to share it in the comments, that would be great. I'm going to go back and forth and share my screen. I recently set up a brand new camera and live stream setup, which I had in boxes for probably about 3 months, and I finally took everything out and set it up. And so I think we're all good today. I have 2 cameras now. I've got a little stream deck, and hopefully it'll go smoothly. So it looks like everybody should be able to see me and hear me. Looks like it's coming through on my screen too. So I have lots to share with you today. I have been so crazy busy the last few months during the spring season. A lot of teaching this last season. So the next few months is a lot of making and painting, I'm hoping, and taking a little bit of a break. So I am wanting to do my In the Paint Studio sessions again. So I sometimes have artists who join me. So if you have anything that you would like to ask or share or want me to share about, just leave it in the comments. That would be awesome. Let's see. How are we doing? Okay, good. Oops, I just lost all my windows. So I think that the whole thing with focus has been such a huge conversation. I just had a live session with members of my play community last, when was it? A few days ago. And that was one of the questions that came up about, how do you find focus? So I think I may do a little bit more of a in-depth in one of the upcoming in the paint studio sessions, just talking about strategies for that. But maybe while I'm painting, I'll talk a little bit more. But if anybody wants to share in the chat what you're working on and how you stay focused on creating what you create, um, to get you through the finished end of your project, I'd love for you to share it in the chat if you'd like. That would be amazing. And I am gonna just dive right in. I've got lots of goodies to share with you. And almost started the broadcast, and then I totally forgot to bring all of the paints over here. And I think I actually forgot to bring the new packaging too. I was gonna show you some of the packaging that comes when you get the any of my products. So I've been really working hard to switch and change a lot of my packaging. And I always started with trying to do everything sustainably and with recycled things that could be recycled or be reused. And so I'm slowly shifting. So when I first started selling a lot of the watercolors and paints, I used to use these small, like, plastic little clear bags, and I bought like tons of them, so I have boxes of them. And so I'm slowly shifting those over, and I'm almost through those. And I have switched over almost completely to everything that's recyclable um, and or biodegradable. So I have some new packaging that I'm really, really excited about. And so I've gone on a hunt for lots of different things. I have and maybe I'll do a video, a session on that, because I think it's fun to kind of see and understand how a maker or an artist thinks about that. I know not everybody does, but for me, for my business, it's really important. So one of the things I do with every paint collection is send out I started sending out a really cool QR code, which hopefully I put everything on a tray, so hopefully it's there. I'm gonna bring everything on my table in a minute, but you get a QR code that get you access to all these bonus goodies that were a surprise for my subscribers last season. So, um, but I really wanted to reduce the, like, printable things that I'm sending out, and even the labels. Instead of putting packing slips in now, I stopped doing that, and everything just gets sent digitally. So we're not wasting paper. I switched from these cardboard boxes, which were recyclable, but I switched them to this like corrugated cardboard roll, so that you could use it and reuse the packaging to use, like, as printmaking stamps and stencils. So I'm really, really trying to do my best to make sure that everything that I put out there is either recyclable or biodegradable. So it's taken a lot of different research and finding some of the places, and just being very, like, looking at things differently. When I see something and I'm like, oh, that would be an awesome package, but it's not really what it's made for, but it would be great for what I want to do. So a lot of the things that I use can be made and put back into your journals. So I'm working on a project to make a little mini book out of all my packaging so that you can see what I'm talking about. Let's see. Mary says she just finished painting her son's vowel renewal invitations. Oh, that sounds really beautiful. Elizabeth says she's sketching florals on big craft paper bags. Nice. Awesome. Okay. Welcome. I think that I'm just looking to see how far behind. I feel like your comments are coming in way later than my chat or what I'm talking about. So I'm going to switch to my desk and let's see. I'm going to see how this looks. I think it looks pretty bright on my screen here. Let me just. I figured out, some of you who were with me the other day, I had a live stream and my camera was so dark, the new camera, and I had it in the wrong mode, in the wrong setting. So I think we're all good now. I just want to double check. Let me know how it looks on the camera, what you see. This is one of my paintings using my new pigment sticks or pigment stones. And I want to show you just a few different things before I dive into painting. If you've been following along with the creative journey through my Instagram, you might have seen some of the behind the scenes of the making of the collection. I haven't done an open live stream like this in a while, so I'm not sure how many of you have seen my new pigment stones. I started making these in earlier this year after I made my drawing sticks. And so I'm really loving this format because they're so versatile. There's lots that you can do with it. I am looking for my iPad really quick. What did I do with that thing? I wanted to show you just a few things. Here we go. I'm really not sure what I did with the iPad, but this whole collection was inspired, or is inspired, by a trip that I took to Monet's garden. So if you're familiar with my paints and inks, you'll know that a lot of what I create is based on memories and stories and things that I encounter. So I take that idea and infuse it into everything I create. So whether it's a body of artwork or paintings or digital paintings when I'm painting on Procreate or sketching, to the actual making of the actual paints. So the paint collections always have a story or an idea or a theme behind them. And I don't just mix colors to randomly mix colors. There's always that idea or theme. And it's something that I teach in all of the classes that I lead my students and guide my students through, is this whole creative process that starts with an inspiration sketchbook. So I'm going to show you a little bit into my sketchbooks. And if I can find my iPad, I think I might have left it in the other room. I might have to go grab it so I want to show you some of the images. So if you're watching this and you have to leave, you can come back and watch the replay. Anytime here inside Crowdcast or on YouTube, you'll be able to watch the replay. And if you want to go back and refer to it at any time, you can just come back right to the same link. So let me switch back down to my desk and just show you a few things. So this collection, I did a lot of brainstorming and sketching and ideating and hold on, I need to take a sip of water. And I'm just going to show you one of my sketchbooks. Let's see. So during the month of June, my daily creative project has been to focus on drawing and sketching. And so I've been working through every day, either drawing in black and white and just making marks. A lot of these are floral shapes that are inspired from the photographs that I took. And I can pull up, let me just pull some of them up on my phone. They're not going to be as big because I cannot seem to find my iPad. I think I just left it over there. So let's just bring this up so I can show you. And I had this series of photos that I took, and I use these to inspire a lot of the mark making that I've been doing. And I'm not trying to replicate the images. I'm really just using them to make marks and to be the inspiration for what I want to create. So while I created a body of or a collection of paints, I also am creating a body of work to go along with this particular idea or theme. So how many of you work in that fashion? I would love to know. I know some of you who are on here are my students, so I think some of you do. I am let me just go and grab my iPad while you answer. I found it. So I go back and forth each day between the iPad and my sketchbook. And some days I work exclusively just on in that sketchbook that I showed you. And then sometimes I actually will take that same idea and I'm going to show you. I'll probably have to bring this ISO down just a little bit. Oops, wrong way. So there we go. So you can see it a little bit better. I've been sketching and using the photographs also from my trip to Monet's garden. So these have been kind of the inspiration for a lot of the sketching that I've been doing. And you can see, like, I'm not trying to create it exactly, but I'm just using it as a guide and as a reference. And a lot of this work was done with my own custom brushes that I've designed. I've designed a whole set of these Wild Bloom brushes, which I've been playing with. They're Procreate brushes. So this collection really helped, or these images really helped me start to develop the actual color palette. So you'll see some of these colors within the spectrum of the paints and inks that I'm going to share with you. So now the color looks kind of funky, but let me switch it back so you can see what I'm talking about. But I just wanted to kind of give you that idea of how a collection for me develops, and how it kind of infuses itself throughout the entire creative process of what I am doing in that season. And let's brighten this back up, and then I am going to paint just a little bit and just show you some fun stuff. So looks like, let's see. Okay, good. Looks bright on mine. How's it look on your screens? I have to keep going back and forth with the ISO on this new camera because, and I have like a couple of studio lights that are on right now too. It's really interesting. So when I paint with the pigment sticks or pigment stones, I like to use a glove on one hand. I'll show you a little peek at the watercolors also. Let me bring this little piece up so I have a little background and show you. I have these brand new, and so this collection, I created these floral XL paint swatch tiles, which I really am loving because they all look like flowers. just kind of wild blooms. So there's about 8, some of them might have 9 swatches of paint on there. And this collection actually I created both watercolor and gouache. So there's a couple of different swatches of each, and some of the gouache slash, I like to call it gritty kind of texture paint, has this really amazing texture. So in the camera, you're not going to be able to see it, but I'm going to show you and talk you through some of the things I've been doing with this paint collection. So it's been so much fun to create. And I say that with like every paint collection that I make, but I love making these because they're all one of a kind. So each one of these pigment stones is a mixture of different pigments and binders. I have a couple of different binder recipes, and they are both great for wet and dry work. And I'm going to show you what I mean. Inside here, I just did some really quick swatching. This was the last collection. This is part of this collection. So this is just all wet. So it's all watercolor swatching. So this is the paint, the pigment stones with a dry, or this is actually wet. This is wet and you draw with it. And this is a little bit of water on it. And then like using your fingers to paint with it. And then watercolor wash, watercolor, full watercolor, and then a watercolor wash. And so you get this variety of paint mark with one stone. And this lasts a long time. So most of these are bigger than my full pans. There's some, depending on the pigments, they are about equivalent to a half pan of paint. But most of them are about, they're bigger than my the full pans of paint, but they are a different recipe than watercolor. So in order for them to be wet and dry, it's a completely different recipe, because if I was to try and make the watercolor into a stone, it would be rock hard. It would work, but it wouldn't release the way that this does. So there was a lot of experimentation, a lot of and every recipe is different, or every mixture is different, every pigment is different. And so it's been a bit of I'm like a mad scientist in my my paint lab. And then these are some of the new watercolors. And as you know, I do these very limited edition. They're all one of a kind. They're all like little pieces of, I like to call them little artworks. A lot of them look like landscapes to me when you look at them. So if you are in my Watermedia Play VIP subscription, which has been sold out since last year, you get these inside there. Right now, the watercolor pans, oh, and if you're a pan subscriber, you get these. Right now, the watercolor pans, I may have some extra to put on in the shop, but these right now are only available for my subscribers. And I may open up subscriptions again soon, since they've been full for a while. But we're going to paint a little bit now. And how many of you, Trina says, love those bright colors. Thank you. Hey, Trina. How are you? Let's see. Mary says, I received one in my kit last quarter. Yes, this quarter you're actually going to receive, some too. So I think you'll be excited with them. I'm going to do a little swatching on a couple of different pieces of paper. So I have a few. Let's see, which one do I want to use now? So let's use this one, because I know you can get it at some specialty stores. So is anybody familiar with the Cotty paper? That's a fun one. I'm going to swatch on here. This is another handmade paper, but since this is handmade, we'll just stick with that one. And then I'm going to swatch also on my mixed media paper, which is the 400 series. This one is the one with my art on it. I also found this when I was doing some cleaning up, and it's fun to see. So I do a lot of swatching on all kinds of different papers. This is my watercolors and inks on like a glossy, kind of a glossy paper, like cardstock. So I encourage you, with whatever line of paints or inks you use, to really experiment with different papers, because you never know what you're going to get. But that I love with the glossy is that you can really see the shimmer in a lot of my inks and paints have lots of shimmer in them. So let's move this so that you can see my desk a little bit. And inside the pigment stones, if you order a set of pigment stones, you get a little swatching tile, which I'm going to show you how I use that. It is a little ceramic tile that it works great as a palette. You can see I use it quite a bit. In this piece here, actually in a couple of pieces, I just want to show you. The pigment stones are amazing with any kind of, if you want them to be permanent, you could use Collage Page. You could mix in high flow medium. This is basically golden high flow, but without color. So you can mix it with any kind of paint that you want, any kind of pigment, and you'll get an acrylic paint. And then the other two things that I like using are matte medium. Well, and actually super matte medium is actually my favorite, but I can't fit the thing on my desk right now. I have a big jug of it. And then also the golden titanium white. So if you want more of a tint or any of the golden fluids, you can mix with my paints too. So if you want to change the color slightly, but I use these mediums to create more of a permanent background. So I build up all these layers. I have a new workshop, a live workshop I'm going to be teaching called Wild Blooms, where I will be showing how to build up these paints. We'll talk a little bit about sketching and drawing motifs, kind of some of the things I showed you in my sketchbook. And then I'll be sharing how I build up all of these layers with, most of this is Tracy Bautista color, and then some water soluble like Inktense pencils, like the red in here, these little, some of the red is mine, some of the red is the pencil. So the one thing that I really encourage you to do is use and mix my paints with other mediums. So on the tile, what I normally do is I put a little bit of water, and then I take one of my stones, and all you have to do is just kind of go in circles, and you'll start to see the paint release right on there. And so you get, this one is mixed with a little bit of white pigment, and so I'm getting a little bit of a tint. And I can use it wet, and I get this like creamy, almost like a creamy crayon. And you'll notice that, I mean, this pigment stone is going to last for a long time because you're only taking a little bit of paint off of it every time. I can also take my finger and then just kind of paint with it. So then I get a little bit of a lighter color. If I take a brush, it's probably going to be a little similar. Maybe I add a little water to my brush, and then I can make it, you know, really more like a watercolor. There's a bunch of color underneath here. So there's a little bit of bluish gray. So now it's like, you know, it's coloring the original color, but you'll see it in a minute. Kind of makes it a pinky, well, it's like mauve actually. Hold on, it looks a little blown out. Let me just go and swap out this. It's hard to tell sometimes. Yeah, that's a little better. Yes, Trina says, oh gouache. I know, they are, they're really, really fun. Has anybody worked with them that got them last quarter? I'd love to hear what you've been creating. I'm just going to put a little bit of blue on here. So I made a few different blues kind of for the sky. This collection has a few different green colors, which I should pull in some of these. So there's like a dark green. If you use these, so some of them, when you use them, they are really, really a little bit dry. Like this one's a little bit hard to pull off when it's dry, while others are like really, like they'll release color. So a lot of that has to do with the pigment. So you can use them dry like that. I'm just going to draw. And then depending on the texture of your paper, it's going to, let's see if I can, oops, oh, a little too much. You know, you'll see it a little bit more. You can rub into it to kind of give you that pastel kind of look. I'm trying to find my other journal. Here it is. Just so that I can show you a variety of paper. What this is. This is the Hahnemühle. I forget which one it is, but I love testing these on the different papers because that way I can see kind of like what they do. So now I can mix this a little bit and add a little bit of white into this, and now I get a new color. So the beauty of this is that it's water soluble, so you can actually let this dry on here, and then you can come back and work with it later. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just put a little water out. I use distilled water. You don't have to, but I like to use distilled water, especially if I know I'm going to leave it for a while. And then I'll just mix a bunch of colors. You can put them down like that. You can also take them and mix them together so that you get new colors. So I'm adding in this kind of like peachy, it's like a orangey red color. And so I can kind of build out my palette even before I paint. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use these. So I'm going to grab a triangle brush, and this is the silver brush. Many of you probably know this is one of my favorites. It's the Ruby Satin Triangle brush. So if I bring it close, let's like try and get it in focus. There we go. It's got like a triangle tip. So when you use it, let's just paint here on this. You can really create some beautiful floral type shapes. So you'll notice when I am painting, I am holding this like really loose. Let me go back. I forgot I zoomed in. Let's go back. There we go. And I'm not like up here like trying to paint really tight. I want it to be like really, really loose and just have this like flowing movement when I paint with it. So when you press down, you can get that wider stroke. If you hold it a little lighter, then you get kind of that thin line. So one of the things I really encourage you to do with any brush that you use is to experiment with it on a variety of papers. Use it in different ways where you're, you know, kind of maybe stamping with it, see what kind of mark you get if you do that. You know, what can you create that will make a different kind of flower every time you use it. I'm going to mix in some of this blue. Let's go and put a little swatch here. That's really pretty. And then I have a few different inks too that I create. So you can mix these with the inks. Let me see if I have. Let's paint with this. So I have a tile that I've been using to paint with. And you can use water, you can use ink. I have, for this collection, I made this really cool. It's more like a binder, it's like a sparkly binder. I don't know if you see it. It's got a really light tint of this beautiful green, yellow green, but I really made it so that you can use it with the pigment stones and with the watercolor. So you can drop it right into the gouache or the watercolor right onto the palette and use it kind of like a water. And then when you mix your paint, you get a little bit of sparkle in there. Some of the paints already have sparkle in them, but that just adds like an additional little glittery, and it's not like heavy glitter. It's like, what's the right term? It's kind of like mica, like a thin, you'll only really see it when you put it in the light. So you can see how pretty some of these brushes are. This is the Silver Dagger Striper Ruby Satin. Let's see if we can, will it focus for me? Focus, focus. It's supposed to focus automatically. I think I have too much stuff going on. Let's see. Go. Nope. It doesn't want to. Is anybody painting? Is anybody else painting today? Let's put a little swatch in here. I'm gonna mix one of my other inks in with this pigment stone that's down here. So you can bring that in. I'm gonna show you the color kind of just with a little bit of that color, that pigment stone, and then I can also mix in a little bit of the white in here and then change that color completely. And so then I get more of like this grayish blue kind of color. Let me add in maybe, let's swatch, did I swatch any of these? Let's mix it with a little bit of the green. That's really pretty. So there's a few different colors. So when I make these colors, I make probably about, I don't know, let's see how many swatches are on here. There's a couple missing on this. So this is a tile. So when I make the colors, this, I usually save like a little tiny bit for myself. You can see how matte they are because they're definitely not as like shiny as some of my other paint collections prior. But these are some of the variations of the colors that are in this particular collection. So there's some really, really pretty greens. Because if you look at those photos that I showed you that I took, there was so much of this like greenery intertwined into the florals, and so that's why this collection has so much green, because there was just like every picture, it just seemed like there was like all these leaves kind of tangled in there. So let's see. Let me see if we have any questions down there. Let me add in some of the like white. So there's always inside the pigment stone mixes, you get, it's a 5 set, and I always have one that has some tint of one of the main colors, but it's mainly of a white. It's mainly a white pigment stone. So this one has like a white and it's peachy. I don't know if you can see that very well. Let me like zoom in a little so you can see it. Maybe I know what I can do. I'm just gonna do it on here. So if I color it on here, you'll see a little bit. So that's got that peachy color. Like there's a green too. This one's really pretty. There's, wait, where's that one? Here it is. This one, I think, I need more space. Hold on, let me do it down here and then I'll bring it up. So this one, it's really, this really pretty, like, you can see that's like really more like pastel. It's got like a lot of pigment that gets released. So if I use my finger, and this is why I wear a glove when I use the pigment stones, because I like to use my fingers to kind of push some of that color into the paper. I can also take a little bit of water and or ink and add it to the color. So if you enjoy painting with your fingers, the pigment sticks are really great for that too. So wet, I love using them wet because you get that deep, it's like a creamy, it's like a really a creamier texture. And depending on the paper that you use will determine like what that line or what how much of the pigment gets laid down. So this is on, these are swatches that I did on just like the student grade mixed media paper by Strathmore. And you can see some of them are a lot more, this is like right when they're really wet, and I'm before I form them into the stones. So I test, like I have all these journals where, see there's more of the stones where I was drawing with them, just to see what kind of marks they were making as they're dry, both wet and dry, and the layers that you can get with the stones. So working really wet and then using a dry brush over the top. Same with this one, using a little bit of dry under the bottom, because you can actually see it's got that texture under there. So I used it dry first and then put a wet brush over the top of it. So you can see how these pigment stones, I mean, the color is so, oh, they're so pretty. I really love making them. So that's also part of some of those greens, and those are also part of this collection. Those, so I'm always testing. That's on Strathmore Mixed Media. Here is one of my other paint making journals. So I have like 3, 4, 5 paint making journals. So when I create my paint collections, let me just put this down where it won't get too smashed. I usually have a journal where I am working in at the same time to swatch a journal or two. So this is, I forget the brand. I took the wrapper off. I forgot what it's called, but I like it. It's a watercolor journal, and you know, I'll swatch out all of the most of this is pigment sticks or pigment stones. Like I was drawing some, she looks a little crazy, a little sad, but you can see I'm just playing with the different, you can see sometimes I write down the notes about the collections, and I really am trying to just push the supply as much as I can to see like what it will do. This is, some of this is the spring collection here, but show you some of the swatches for the Wild Blooms. Those are some of the greens and some of like the yellow oranges that are in that collection. So a mixture of the dry. So I really like trying, like I said, using it dry and wet so that I can see what it looks like when it's down on the page. So this paint is very much acts like, it acts like watercolor and gouache when you use it very wet like that. So you can see right there with those swatches what they look like. And then you get that more pastel kind of quality when you, or creamy crayon when it's wet, and then more pastel when it's completely dry. So let me look at questions while I continue to doodle and draw and paint a little bit. And I'm just going to put these here so you can kind of see the variety of the colors. Let's see what this one, this is really pretty too. So this is a pigment I got from France, and it's got like, it's kind of a, this one has a couple of colors. So it's got like an orange and a red pigment in it. So it's kind of this fiery orangey red color. That's part of that collection. Let's see, is this the one? Oh yeah, I showed you that one. Let's do, look at the screen. Yum. It's like it's like a teal green-ish kind of color. There's a brown. Where's the brown? Let's see. There's a couple of different pretty browns in here. So that's one of the brown colors. It's kind of got a mixture. It's got a little bit of the other colors on it too right now because I have a bunch of them stacked on here. This is one of the greens, which the green This particular one, I think it's a little harder, so when you wet it, I think it works a little bit better. And it has to do with the pigment itself. So I just put a little bit of my sparkle ink on there. And then let's put a little bit of this green down. And then there's some on the swatch tiles. Then, so 'cause a lot of these are mixes of colors. So on the swatch tiles, what I like to do with the swatch tiles, these, I usually put like the solid color in there, so that you get a variety if you get the watercolors and the pigments. So you can see like that really pretty red color. That one was inspired by, there's a bunch of dahlias inside Monet's garden. I'm just painting a little flower. So before I actually paint some of the landscapes and the floral paintings that I do, I kind of do this experimentation with the different brushes that I'm working with. One of my other favorites from Silver Brush is the Dagger Striper Black Velvet, which is one of their like popular watercolor lines. It's got like a really, I just love dagger brushes for, especially if you're gonna paint florals. They're just a really beautiful a line that you can get with them. I'll show you. Let me move that out of the way. A little more loose than the triangle brush and even that other dagger striper that I used. I'm kind of layering all these now. One of the things that I'll do with this is I'll just take a little bit of my, let's use a little Collage Page. I'll put a little Collage Page here just to show you how to, I'll swatch it with it so you can kind of see. I don't know if you'll be able to actually see it, but this will help make it permanent. So like I said, if you have any kind of matte medium, high flow, this is Golden High Flow, medium is great. So I have to be careful. I recorded a video the other day and I was pouring this out and then it just squirted all over my table and got everywhere. So I just poured out. So you can use this and just like brush it on. I need a different brush. So I use separate brushes. Which, did I take them out of here? I usually use separate brushes with, oh here, I can use this one. With my any kind of acrylic medium with my paints because I don't want my watercolor brushes to get ruined. I used to not really care, but now I'm really, I have a set. So like this Silver Silk line, I'll usually, if I want to add in any kind of acrylic, I'll usually use this, or sometimes I use, which one is this one? No, not that one. To think of which, no, it's not that one. These are all my watercolor. I've moved all my other brushes. Well, let me just clean this one off and I'll show you. So what you can do with either of these is take it and I can just kind of scrub it right into the high flow medium like that. And you can start to see it gets to become a little bit of a thicker paint. I'm just going to do a little bit here with the Collage Page. So Collage Page is not as like, the viscosity is different. So if you want more of like that flowy paint, then I would definitely use the high flow. If you're, especially if you're familiar with like golden high flow, that's, we'll just paint a little, some other random flower, but make it blue. I guess I could have painted a palm tree or something. Let's turn it into a palm tree. Since it is kind of blue, let's put a little green in there. So I'm just mixing a little bit of the pigment stone right in there. And you can see, look, there's still a lot of pigment stone left, and I'm getting a lot of color out of that. And then I've got a little bit of greenish. It's like a greenish blue. It's almost like pampas grass, this brush thingy. This is a 1/2 inch silver silk, 88, and it's the ribbon dagger. I know I'm going to get questions after. So I'll put the links inside here after. This again, I know somebody asked what brushes. Silver, ruby satin, the triangle brush. It also comes in another one of their lines or two. I can't remember which ones. I have to go and look. And the other brushes I used were the black velvet striper, dagger striper. And I will share the links in here later, so you can come back and rewatch it. And I'll remind everybody in my email that I do as a follow-up. And then the other one I used was the ruby satin dagger striper. So you can see the difference in the size, in the length of the bristles of the brush. So this one will give you some really beautiful long lines. The nice thing about this last one I used with the acrylic is that it gives you kind of this really cool dry brush effect at the end, even though it's a wet paintbrush. Let me throw this in the water so it doesn't get stuck in there. So let me do a little bit with this. So I'm going to take this and just like, what I like to do a lot of times with my mediums and like the acrylic is to do a layer in the back that just has a bunch of color, and it creates this like texture because the pigment stones have so much texture in them. You get this really great like gritty feel to it when it's dry. So you're not going to really be able to see it in the camera right now, but when it's dry, you can rub your finger over the top of it and you can really feel the texture because it's the different, it's what I put in there. It's all the different things that make up those pigment stones. So the things that I add into it create that really, really awesome grittiness to it. So that's a little peek. Let me grab the questions and see what you all are saying. Let me see if I showed everything I wanted to show you all with the paints. There are a couple of surprises. I didn't want to reveal everything because my subscribers, I know many of you are on here, and I want you to have a little surprise when you open the box. So there's a couple of things that I'm not showing on here. Let me wipe off. Oh, I do have. So I actually started using this particular packaging, but then there's still a little plastic on here. I really love this one too, because I love that you can see. So when I love these because like when I put the pigment stone in it, it really shows off like the color of the stone. And these are still recyclable. But the nice thing is that you can see through it. But I switched to another packaging too. So some of them come like this. Some of them come in this other craft kind of paper drawstring bag. This, and all of them are hand stamped. And even my paint labels are hand swatched. So just adds like a little nice element to it. It's a fun little bonus. Okay, questions. Let me take off my glove and answer some questions. Let's see. Angela, I just saw your question there. Let me come back onto the camera really quick. So she said, let's see. Well, before Angela's. Oh, thank you, Sherry. She wrote down the brushes. Thanks, Sherry. If you are interested in the paint collection, I should tell you, there is a link underneath the video, so you can grab them. It's a really limited edition release, like everything that I do for my paints and inks, because right now I'm the only one that's making them. And I it's really a labor of love. I mean, it takes a long time to make every collection. That's why I went to doing quarterly collections for the paints. And I actually am thinking, so those of you who voted, thank you so much. I thought that the pigment stones would be the number one as far as a one thing subscription. So I think I'm probably going to do that. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do it quarterly or bi-monthly, because the pigment stones actually are a little bit quicker to make than the watercolor pans. Take a long time because each one is hand done too with the pigment stones, but the pigment stones, they take a little bit less time to dry. But I would love your feedback if you would be interested in either every other month or once a quarter. So if you got a package once a quarter, it'd probably be 5 or maybe 6 stones. If it was every other month, it's probably going to be only 3, three each every other month. So by the end of, if you were a subscriber for 3 months, you'd have 9 stones. So yeah, so I keep brainstorming all these really fun ideas. I thought, ooh, maybe I will do like a mystery ink of the month club, but that I need to hire somebody to help with packaging if I do all of those, because it's a lot of work, especially with the hand painted labels. Angela asked, how and why did you decide to make paint and ink? So I love that question because I actually started it on a whim. So I went to let me rewind actually. So 2010, I taught a collaborative workshop with one of my really good friends, artist friends, Karen Michelle. She is an amazing artist and has a couple of books. One is, I think, the she's I'm gonna butcher it. It's like the Green Guide to it's all about like green art supplies, and so she actually makes paint, and so we did this collaborative workshop back in 2010 at Tracy and Tisha Moore's studio in Seattle. And she taught paint making, and I had visited her back in 2010 for the first time when I was doing an East Coast tour teaching. And that's when she taught me how to make paint. We were just like playing with turmeric back then and charcoal and making a really, really simple paints. And so then when I came home, I bought all these pigments. I went over to Sinopia. This is when they had a store in San Francisco. And I went to their store and bought like a ton of pigments. And then I kind of put them aside for a while, and I would pull them out every so often. And then Karen and I taught that workshop. I think we taught that workshop maybe in 2012 or something like that. And then I kind of just kept, doing my painting and collage and teaching. And then every so often I would experiment with making paints. I would make watercolor. I would mix pigments with acrylics and kind of alter my acrylics. Then I started making clay paint with the acrylic paint. And I would take clay from my ceramics class and mix it with acrylic paint to create these really cool like matte paints. And that was probably in like 2012 or 13 when I had my studio down the street. And I was like, oh, I love this, because it was like really textured and gritty. And then in 2017, I I just felt like I needed something else in my business that was different. I've been teaching already for over 15 years. I've written 3 books already. I've been teaching online since 2000, I think 9. And so I went to the San Francisco Pen Show, which is hosted in every August. If you're in the Bay Area and you love fountain pens, you have to go to the show. It's amazing. It's awesome. It's like I ended up teaching there the next year, but I went and walked around and they had all these really amazing inks, and I was like, oh, that's so I bought a bunch of ink, and I was like, I wonder how you make ink. So I did all this research, and then I was like, I could totally do that. And I did a bunch of research, looked up formulas. I read a bunch of books. I checked out books from the library. I bought a bunch of books about paint making. And then I had learned how to make paint from Karen, that 10 years ago, over 10, no, it's like 12 years ago now. And so I started making my 5-year anniversary for Tracy Bautista Color is in August this year. Well, my first collection launched and I sent it out, I think in October, but I announced it in August. I had no idea what how I was going to package, how to ship any of this, all the bottling. Like, I had no product, and I just had one Instagram post. This was in August of 2017. I just took a screenshot of it the other day because I wanted to check the date so that I could do an anniversary celebration. And that post said, hey, I am thinking about launching this paint. It was something to do with that. I'm thinking about launching this ink and paint collection. And if you're interested, I set up a landing page, and a week later, I put up the pre-sale pre-order page, and it sold out like in a day. Yeah, I think probably in a day or two. And that's how Tracy Bautista Color was born. So originally it was just ink, and then I did a set of watercolors. And I think I'll do another live just to kind of take you through the history of the evolution of the product lines, because the one thing I love about being a paint maker and an artist in general is that, like, you have the ability to create whatever you want. So I've done a lot of research for recipes and binders, and like I said, I've read a lot of books, and a lot of it's just experimenting. And this product, the pigment stones, came out of making the pigment sticks, but it came out of, I was telling the story the other day, I make the sticks, and what I have to do is I'll measure out, and I don't measure like with a measuring spoon or anything, but I dollop out the mixture of the actual it ends up being kind of like a paste, but not really a paste. So I put it out on the paper and let it dry a little bit, and then I have to roll the sticks. And so I roll the sticks, and then one night I left them out, and I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh no, I totally forgot to roll them. So I pulled up the paper and I was like, ooh, these are really cool. And so that's kind of how the stones were born. It was like a happy accident because I just left some of my pigment mixture out, and I had actually been playing with that idea in a little bit of a form, but with watercolor only, but it still wasn't exactly what I wanted. And then when this happened, and it was a little bit different shaped, and so then I was like, oh, what if I did this and this? And so now it's become this really cool like mixed media, multi-use thing in one little stone. So it's been such an awesome thing to do, just trying to figure out like how each pigment works with it. Like I said, every pigment is different. All the recipes are different as far as ratios go for like ink and binder, or pigment and binder. And I am not a measurer. Like, I do not measure. It's like when I cook, I just kind of throw things in there, and it ends up like tasting okay. And so it's the same way when I make paint. I eyeball things, so I can kind of just put the pigments in, and then I put a little binder, and then I keep mixing it, and then put a little bit more. And I'll normally take a swatch and just write what pigments are I used. I don't write exact recipes at all in any of my paint making journals. There are times like when I make the inks, before when I first started making my inks, I would actually write the number of milliliters of the color that I put in there. But now I do everything by eyeball. And one paint collection, so when I build a paint collection, it always starts with that story. And then I pull a color palette many times from the photos that I've taken that relate to that story. And then that's how I start building the collection. So I'll take one color in that color palette, and it just kind of pops into my mind. I'm like, okay, I want to start with that one. And then from there, I build the color palette of the collection around that one color. And it just kind of, it's a very intuitive process. I don't plan it. It just, like, I see color, and I've been like that since I was younger. I always equate it to somebody who was born and able to sing, like can just sing. I cannot, but I have that gift with color, and it comes out in this whole paint line and ink line and pigment stone line that I've developed. So I am so grateful for those of you who have supported this portion of my business. It has been such, like I said, a labor of love to be able to share with you. I want to do more of these because I know I haven't done a lot, just to show kind of inside the paint collections. I know they are a little bit more expensive than, if you were just to go buy it's like, why wouldn't I just go buy like one of those $5 paint pans in Michael's? Because those are produced with a lot of additives, and they're made on a machine. It's just this really artistic, creative journey making these pigment stones and sticks. For those of you who took my pigment to paint courses, you know how much work it goes into creating paints. It is a lot. It's physical. Even though you don't think so, it's a lot of physicality. It's a lot of, I call it kind of like this really fun meditation as I make the paints. The last thing I'll leave you with, and I talk a little bit about my story. I don't know if you have all seen this, but this is the new Art Supplies Encyclopedia book from Uppercase Magazine. Janine, who is the publisher, she puts out these beautiful magazines, but she does these encyclopedias. I don't know how often. I don't know if she does them like once or twice a year, but this book is so inspirational. There's like so much color in there. There's a bunch of handmade paint makers, lots of handmade tools. A few of my friends are in here. Wendy Brightbell. Who else is in here? Mary Beth Shaw from Stencil Girl is in here. And then there's a little section on Tracy Bautista color. So if you get a chance to read this, you can actually see more of it in the Uppercase website too, I think. But I talk a little bit about the story and the process behind. So you got more of an explanation today. So I'm pretty proud of this article. It's the first one for Tracy Bautista color. I actually was going to write one for Stampington when I first launched the product line, but I didn't get everything done, and it kind of fell through. So having that now for this year, especially since it's my 5-year anniversary for Tracy Bautista color, I never imagined that it would grow into what it is now 5 years later. Like I wonder what's going to happen in the next 5 years with it. And I love the process of being able to just get into the paint making lab and just say, what do I want to make today? And I hope that you see that that's what you can do with your artwork. Even if you're not making paint, you can still go into your studio and pull out a few different supplies and just, start making marks and have that time to just play and experiment. That's why I created the Play membership, because I really want to encourage artists to take that time to play as you go throughout your creative journey. So we'll be talking more about all kinds of really fun topics, I hope, in these sessions. I want to bring on a few of my friends, guests. I love doing these creative conversations. I've had them with a few of my friends through the years. So I think I'm going to invite a few of my friends and do kind of just round table style chatting. I do FaceTimes with a lot of them sometimes. I'm like, you guys, we should have just done this live because we always talk about the most random things. And it's like, it's fun to be, I think, a fly on the wall. So, um, if you are interested in my paints and inks, you can click on the link underneath the video and it'll take you right to the collection page for Wild Blooms. I release a seasonal collection that includes like all of these in one box for my VIP Water Media Play subscribers, but I usually only open up that for one, usually only once a year. I may have a couple of spots that opened up. And then like I said, I'm thinking about the Pigment Stone subscription. So I would love to know if you have feedback for that, if you're interested. I know it looked like a lot of you were interested in the comments there. Let me just look at this. Sherry asks, is a mask required when using these to avoid breathing any of this in? So I would definitely say, because you have asthma, Sherry, I would say just to be safe, you might want to, if you're using them completely dry, like if you're not going to wet them at all, then I would say yes, use a mask, and definitely use gloves. I use gloves all the time now. If you're just using a little bit at a time, you should be okay. But like if I'm using them for like the whole day, or even when I'm making the paints, I do wear a mask. So if you do have any kind of breathing issues, it's just like working with pastels. If you're going to work with pastel, any kind of dry media like that, even like charcoal, any kind of loose pigment, always wear a mask for sure. I would definitely always wear a mask. I just saw John's, I don't know, it's not really a question, but John left this comment. He said, interested in how you construct wildflower watercolor landscapes. Yes, so I think I'll talk more about that in when my session's coming up. And again, I will be teaching it live in a workshop coming up too. Yeah, Sherry says, thanks, I will mask up. Yeah. Thanks, Anastasia. She says, what an inspirational story, Tracy. Thank you. So the last thing I'll share with you. So with this collection and with any collection that I normally do, I really love books. And so, but I really love the library. So I went and I just picked these up yesterday. So I haven't got to like thumb through them yet, but I have another book that I bought when I was out there. That's more of the story about, Monet, but I got these because I really wanted to kind of read more about the like just the inspiration behind the garden and what else was in there, because when we went there we just kind of walked around and there was not like I didn't would have been nice to have a guide just to talk a little bit through it, but I mean it's just look at these water lilies and those weeping willows. I mean, has anybody been to Monet's garden? My dad told me that they're having a Monet exhibit, kind of like the Van Gogh. We did the Van Gogh exhibit the last time I was out there visiting my family. So we're going to go see the Monet one this summer too. I'm really excited about it. So I think I got all the questions. Thank you all for answering the polls. Again, I will send out a follow-up email to kind of summarize everything. And also I'll put the links for the supplies here inside the comments. So that way, if you come back and watch this, you'll be able to see the links. And I'll also put them in the YouTube video if you're watching this on YouTube. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming and hanging out today. Thanks for all your fun questions. I will be seeing you again. I'll let you know when I do the next live in the paint studio session. So have a beautiful weekend and I will see you next time. Bye.